Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend remarks and to insert extraneous material.
That objection is so ordered.
Madam Chairman, I yield myself 5 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I support this bipartisan resolution to hold Attorney General William Barr and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross in contempt of Congress because it is necessary to preserve the integrity of this body and of the census. The Constitution mandates that we conduct a census every 10 years and that the census count every person. A full, fair, and accurate account is critical to ensuring that we properly allocate federal funding and congressional apportionment. I do not take this decision lightly. Holding any secretary in criminal contempt of Congress is a serious and sober matter, one that I have done everything in my power to avoid. But in the case of the Attorney General and the Secretary Ross, they have blatantly obstructed our ability to do congressional oversight into the real reason Secretary Ross was trying for the first time in 70 years, to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census. Secretary Ross testified under oath that he added a citizenship question, and I quote, solely. I want to concentrate on that word, solely, to help the Justice Department enforce the Voting Rights Act. But we now know that claim was nothing but a pretext. And do not take my word for that, Madam Speaker. The Supreme Court said that. Our committee's investigation uncovered evidence that Secretary Ross launched a secret campaign to add the citizenship question within days of assuming his post. We learned that Secretary Ross ignored warnings from experts inside and outside the Census Bureau, including the Bureau's chief scientist, that adding a citizenship question would be costly and harm the accuracy of the census. In other words, they were saying, if you do this, you're not going to have an accurate census. Our investigation also revealed that Secretary Ross spoke with Attorney General Sessions, Steve Bannon, and Chris Kobach. Contrary to his testimony to the Congress, the Commerce Department conjured up the voting rights rationale to hide these interactions. This entire Congress should be insulted by this. Committee Democrats first asked for documents from the Department of Commerce and the Department of Justice when we were in the minority in April and May of 2018. Both departments ignored us. When I became chairman, I renewed these requests on behalf of the committee. Since then, the administration has engaged in a purposeful efforts to obstruct, and I do not use that word lightly, our investigation. The departments have refused to provide key unredacted documents that we need to understand the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, about why they really made this decision. Instead, what did they do? They produced thousands of pages that were largely non-responsive, heavily redacted, or publicly already available. When they let us interview witnesses, what did they do? They ordered the witnesses not to answer more than 500 of our questions. Secretary Ross even refused my request to meet to try and work this out. Like I said, I do not come to this floor lightly. This is not an easy decision. But there comes a time when the Congress must speak up for the Congress. I grant myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
As a result, on April 2nd, more than 3 months ago, after a bipartisan vote, the committee subpoenaed these key documents, including a secret memo that the Department of Commerce wrote about the citizenship question and gave to the Department of Justice. The departments have admitted to us that this memo does exist, but they refuse to produce this document and many others. Now, I must say, in all credit, give credit where credit is due. My good friend and colleague on the other side, Mr. Meadows, worked tirelessly to try to help us get the things that we needed, and I appreciate that, trying to work in a bipartisan way. But going on from there, last month, in light of this obstruction, the Oversight Committee passed a resolution to hold Attorney General Barr and Secretary Ross in contempt of Congress. The vote was also bipartisan. However, many of our Republican colleagues apparently support the President's administration's refusal to comply with duly authorized congressional subpoenas. And let me say to my colleagues that what we are about, we need to be clear that we as a body have a constitutional duty to be a check on the executive branch. That's our job. Every 2 years, we swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. That is what we're supposed to do. And so my colleagues claim that we were interfering with the Supreme Court's decision on this issue. That argument never did make any sense to me. Since we launched our investigation in 2018, more than 10 months before the Supreme Court took up the case. But even if you accept that misguided argument, the Supreme Court case is now over. That argument is gone. The President announced last week that he would no longer pursue adding a citizenship question to the census. However, in that same speech, the President admitted that he wanted citizenship data to implement partisan gerrymandering. The President's statements directly contradict Secretary Ross's sworn testimony that the only reason, the sole reason, the Trump administration wanted this data was to help the Justice Department enforce the Voting Rights Act. The Departments of Justice and Commerce have been engaged in a campaign to subvert our laws and the process Congress put in place to maintain the integrity of the census. And I would say to all of our members, let's be very careful on what we do with regard to the census. It has a tremendous impact for 10 years on how federal funds, more than $660 billion, is appropriated over and over again. Apportionment, redistricting, and making sure that every American gets their fair share back of their taxpayers' dollars. The hard-working money, people who raise the money for our taxes. The resolution before us today is about protecting our democracy. It is about protecting the integrity of this body. It's bigger than the census. It's about protecting the integrity of the Congress of the United States of America. We need to understand how and why the Trump administration tried to add a question based on pretext so that we can consider reforms to ensure that this never happen again. There are those who will ask the question, why would the Supreme Court, having decided what they've decided, and why do you want the documents? We want the documents because we want to make sure that we do not in the future spend a year and a half chasing something that is not accurate. In the words of the Supreme Court, a pretext, delaying our process of getting an accurate account, which is exactly what the Constitution says we must do. And so I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support our resolution to hold Attorney General Barr and Secretary Ross in contempt of the Congress of the United States of America. And with that, Madam Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman